Looks like we have quite a few folks who are joined and are participating in our chat here. I'm going to go ahead and get started because we only have 1 hour together, and I want to make sure that it's an impactful hour. If for some reason you cannot see my screen, you cannot hear me, please throw that into the chat. I want to make sure that this is a great experience for you guys. This is one of our first times that we're doing this live online, so I usually feed off the audience. I love feeling the energy in the room, the communication, the discussion. So bear with me as I can't see any of you, I can't hear any of you. So I'm just gonna kind of really vibe off that chat. We do have a couple of Q&A options and polls that we're gonna do throughout this time. Hopefully you've downloaded the toolkit. We're gonna be going through that as well. And this really is going to be different than any webinar or web series that you've been a part of, because we are going to work during this time. I want you to be participating right alongside me, and I'll be giving you some instructions as we go through, doing some reflection, some discussion via chat, and really creating some action. And if you know anything about leverage, you know that we are all about making sure that we're taking action. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me. I want to thank you guys for being flexible and joining us virtually. I know it's kind of a weird experience for most of us. If you were already remote, you guys were way ahead of the game, because man, it took me some adjusting. That being said, I am new to the Zoom style workshop, so I appreciate your patience and your understanding along the way, and we'll figure it out together. But I do want to make sure that this is the most impactful time that we can offer for you guys, because we are taking an hour out of your day. So if there's something that we could be doing to make it better, feel free to give us that recommendation during or after the workshop. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is John Spanzik, and I am the Director of Employee Engagement Services for a brand called Leverage. Some of you may know our parent company, ClickStop. We're that big gray warehouse-looking building off of 380, home of Iowa's largest indoor water slide. And over at ClickStop, we've had a ton of success being a fast-growing company. We've been a top workplace. We've been recognized nationally by Inc. magazine and Google. We've had all these wonderful accolades. And people would come to us and say, how in the world are you making this happen? Where are you getting all this top talent? For God's sakes, you are in the middle of a cornfield. Why would anybody want to come work for you? And we would share that story with people. We'd tell them what it is we're doing, what our strategies are, what we're teaching our leaders, and how we're bringing in top talent and engaging them. And soon we realized that people didn't want us to just tell them what we were doing. They actually wanted us to partner with them and help them do it for themselves. So we created a brand called Leverage, where we take the same teams like me, who's helping serve our internal community, and bring them external to partner with other companies to create a thriving culture fostered in engagement. So that means we're taking the same strategies, the same opportunities, programs, and goals, and we're transmitting that into your organization, becoming an extension of your team, and doing it in a way that makes most sense for your company to create an impact. So before we get started here, I wanted to let you know that none of us are immune from the worry or fear that this situation has caused. The uncertainty raises a lot of questions for people, and honestly, a lot of us just don't have answers. So what is it that we can offer people who have been reaching out, who are asking those questions, to our employees? What is it that we can provide as guidance so that we can help employees lead through these difficult and trying times? The answer to that is engagement. And I'm excited to talk to you about how we can manage and maximize engagement during these uncertain times. But before we get started, I want to just lay out a couple of ground rules and some things about what this Zoom looks like. I've never done this before, so we're going to try out a few different features and see how this goes. So while I'm going through some of these housekeeping tidbits, we're going to take a little poll. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a little indicator that says a poll has been launched. And you can now view that. It might have popped up on your screen there. And I want you to answer the question, does your company have a clear definition of engagement? So you have three options there. Yes, we all know it. I think so, but I could not tell you what it is. And no, it's probably different for everyone. Go ahead and answer that question for us there, and I'll go ahead and share the response. No poll. Should be popping up on the bottom of your screen there. If you see the, all right. Well, hey folks, we're just gonna go ahead and skip that poll because apparently what worked in my practice session isn't working now, which is part of just testing this out. All right, we're gonna go ahead and skip that. If you want to look at the bottom of your screen there, you are going to see this black bar that pops up. You'll see chat, raise your hand in a Q&A section. Throughout the day, if you do have questions that pop up, feel free to chime in into the Q&A section there. You could do that also in the chat feature, but I do have a little bit clearer view if it pops into this Q&A here. And that way I can go ahead and respond to the group, because most likely if you have a question, others are wondering it as well. So I'll make sure that I get those answered for you guys. If you're familiar with any of our workshops, you know that we like to be highly interactive. Being remote makes that a little bit more difficult. So bear with us and please try and do the chat feature or the Q&A because it will help us a lot to keep that energy up and make sure that we are all interacting in the best way possible. So, I also ask that you are sharing and communicating openly with confidence and respect. Recognize that we're all in different places in our journey. Please be respectful of that and recognize that we're all here to learn. We only have 60 minutes together, so I am not going to take any breaks, and we are going to move fast. We're going to work quickly, but I promise that's going to create an impactful experience for you guys, and you're going to walk away with something extra special. Know that I can't see you and I can't hear you and neither can anybody else. So if you do need to stretch, bio break, or attend to your kids or your pets who are climbing all over you, feel free to do that. We'll never know. I am also recording this workshop, so I will send that out afterwards. So if you want to share this with any of your coworkers or your teammates, you want to look back and read some of this later on or dive back into it, you'll be able to have that opportunity. Lastly, you have those fancy toolkits. Hopefully you downloaded before. It's in your email, sent it this morning, sent it yesterday, but we are going to need to have that in front of you because we are going to be doing some work together. So without further ado, let's get started. So as I've been reflecting and discussing and coaching these last few weeks, it's really reminded me about the importance of engagement. I think about ClickStop. I think about our parent company and what's going really well for us. And it's moments like these that we prepare by investing in our culture. We've spent a lot of time putting a lot of work into our culture. We have a whole team dedicated to it. And what that's allowed us to do is have an amazing group of engaged employees so that during these times of uncertainty, during these challenging and trying times, we can dig deep and commit to getting through it. It's okay to feel scared, worried, or concerned. Trust me, I've gone through it. I feel that way as well. But what we do with those emotions will determine where we end up when this pandemic calms. Are we the ClickStoppers? Are we the employees? Are we the community that we paralyzed by the unknown and disrupted workplace? Or are we the ones who will be courageous and promote a winning team spirit? Will think big and make something even bigger happen. Engaged employees are going to align with the latter. They're the ones that are going to be committed and make something happen. I want you to turn over to page 3 in your toolkit. I'll give you a minute to get that set for you. On page 3, you're going to see across the top, it says, what is engagement? You see it up on your screen here as well. On the left-hand side, you see this little gray box that says leverage as definition. I want you to write down this definition in your toolkit. Commitment and aligned action to your mission, values, strategy, and goals of the organization. Engagement is commitment and aligned action to the mission, values, strategy, and goals of the organization. Engagement can be such a powerful tool for people. What would it look like if every employee showed up to work committed and ready to take action in alignment with what was most important with your organization? What would that do for the team? What would that do for your organization? It would make a heck of a difference, wouldn't it? A lot of people tell me, oh yeah, we expect engagement, we see it, we just know it when we feel it. But when I ask how they define it, it's really hard for them to put words to it. So we're doing that today. We're giving you that definition, right? Commitment and aligned action. It requires those two components because not only do you have to be committed to it, you have to believe in it, you have to understand it, and you have to do something with it and take action in alignment with those things that are most important. Now, engagement is different than satisfaction. Engagement is that commitment. Satisfaction, on the other hand, is contentment. If you think about engagement like a relationship, I would much rather have my wife say that she's 100% committed to our relationship no matter what, rather than hope that she's just happy for the moment. Contentment, satisfaction, that's fleeting. That's a moving target. Engagement, that's long lasting. That is a deep rooted commitment to something. With challenging work schedules, shifts in daily life, and workplace routines uprooted, now more than ever, we need engaged employees, because engaged employees will be the ones to weather the storm, who continue to give it their all, and to push through these challenging times ahead. And like a relationship, you need to continue to work towards it, and you need to build on it. And there are those indicators that tell you when things are going really well. And one of those indicators is communication. If my wife didn't talk to me for a day, I know I did something wrong. I know I did something that I need to correct or fix, right? That is an indicator of how things are going in our relationship. The same goes with engagement. You can influence engagement by the level of communication that you're providing. And today we're going to focus in on two things that you can do to keep employees engaged and maximize that engagement during these uncertain times. The first is communication. So I want you to think for a moment. We're going to imagine just for a minute here. What would it look like if we all went back to our workplaces and we all had everybody back in the building, things were jumping back into routine, but all of the walls of your building were glass. And I was walking around assessing what it is your leaders were doing and what they were, how they were interacting with people. How would I know that they're a good leader? How would I know that they're doing a great job? The answer to that is communication. I'd see them talking to people, interacting with people, having good discussions. I would be able to pick those people out because they were having conversations. Regardless of our circumstances, whether this was happening or not, communication has always been the number one thing that people say could improve throughout the organization. That's likely not new information. That's something that you probably have thought about yourself in your organization, something that could be improved. It's a common obstacle for organizations, and it's not the desire to withhold communication or withhold information, but what they struggle with most is how to get the right information shared with the right people in the right ways. So if you think about research around employee engagement, some of those drivers that you've heard me talk about, I'm sure, or you've read about: clear expectations, transparency, trust in leadership, having what you need to be successful, management support. All of those things can be connected to the various levels and ways that we communicate with our employees. So if you want to influence engagement, you need to first start with communication. In addition, communication, particularly during these times of uncertainty and these challenging moments in our workplace, communication helps show people that they're valued, that you're thinking of them, that you're caring for them and considering them when you guys are planning out your response or what's next or what the rest of the day looks like. And a big part of that communication is both sharing that information, but also taking time to listen to what's most important to them. Now, especially, employees are looking for that right amount of communication from leaders. The right communication gives hope, gives stability, and demonstrates that employees are being cared for. If we're going to get through these wild and uncertain times, communication is going to be key. And I plead to you guys that you're proactive, because if people know that you are considering them and that they're not just collateral damage, then they're going to be more willing to commit to that. They're going to be willing to trust your decision and your response. Being proactive, even if you don't know the answers, even if you don't have anything necessarily to share, just share that. Hey, I'm thinking of you. Hey, I want to communicate to you. We're going to communicate, and here's the timeline, but I don't have any information yet. And I'm sure a lot of you guys, particularly with the new stimulus packages that have been rolled out, there's a lot of unknowns that are happening. And when unknowns happen, it can cause a lot of unnecessary drama for people if we're not proactively communicating about it and letting people know, hey, I got you. We're considering it. We're working through it. We're trying to figure things out. Because if you just let it be a blank slate and you just leave it open to interpretation, people will fill in the blanks, and most likely they will fill them in with very negative things because worry and concern and fear will creep in. And that causes a lot of unnecessary drama and a lot of things that we need to then unwind. It starts with asking questions. My leader, Monica, said the other day, it's about questions, not competency. She doesn't necessarily need to have all of the answers, but she needs to create the lines of communication for us to be asking questions and for her to be asking questions of us. So set time aside to make sure that people can express, can ask questions, and connect, even if there aren't answers to be had. That lack of information, again, can cause unnecessary drama. But talking about it, talking through it, will help give you the information you need to shape your message so that you can be an effective communicator and you can touch on the things that are most important to employees. We can't assume that we know what employees need from us, especially during this time. But if we ask, we can find that information. Lastly, set time aside to connect. We are all in this together, and it is okay to say, I don't know, you guys, but I'm here for you. Taking time to connect will help people cope with fear, will help people understand that, hey, this is a tough time, but I have somebody who has my back. And that is an important feeling to have when a lot of us, our worlds have been turned upside down. Working from home, working in isolation. If you are still working at the workplace, it certainly doesn't look the same. And when you feel like you are alone, having somebody who has your back, who's willing to connect with you, can mean a world of difference. I want you to turn over to page 4 here for us. You'll see it says communication inventory across the top. We're going to take a few minutes to reflect and take some inventory of our current situation, where we're at right now. So I mentioned this is going to be a working workshop. This isn't just a webinar where you're going to listen to me talk the whole time. I actually want you to do some reflection and some planning as well. So across the top, I have a couple instructions for you. First and foremost, I want you to reflect and answer the top 4 boxes, just the top 4 boxes, answering the questions. How are you connecting with employees? What are you doing to take time to listen? What are you hearing when you listen? And how has that shaped your communication and your message? So we're going to take just a few minutes. I got a timer here. We're going to do about 4 minutes to answer those questions. I tried playing music for you guys earlier, but it just sounded really tinny and it didn't work. So you're going to just have me staring into your soul as we're talking through, or as you guys are reflecting through this. What are you doing to connect with employees? Some of you guys mentioned you were reaching out via video calls or chat. I know in our organization, we've been sending some cards out, and we've connected via social media with a lot of folks. What are you doing to take time to listen? Maybe it's daily Q&As. Maybe it's open door policy that you did, which is kind of weird seeing that you're at home, right? And as you finish up those 4 boxes, go ahead and share some of your ideas in the chat so folks can participate and see what it is that you're doing. Answering either what is it that you're doing to connect, or what is it that you're doing to listen to employees. Go ahead and throw that in the chat box so that everybody can see what it is that you are working on. Also note that check the box where it says to all panelists and all attendees. That way everybody can see it. Just a little drop down where it says to in the chat box. Make sure it says all panelists and all attendees. Kelly, that sounds awesome. Your own March Madness. I'd love to hear more about what that looks like. Teams wearing designated shirts each week. It's going great. I like that. Carla, one thing that you guys are doing is calling them to check in and making sure that they have what they need. What a powerful way to connect, right? And your needs being met. Ashton, I see your team is small, so you have the ability to complete a daily huddle. I like that. Phone calls, Holly. What a weird time that we have to go back to phone calls, right? It seems like so many people were getting away from just chatting on the phone and wanted more of the text messaging or the chat features. And now we're back to making phone calls. I like that. Rhonda, reaching out via Teams, absolutely. A couple of our teammates have been doing some random calls where we just check in on people with a video call, and kind of catches them off guard sometimes, but it's just a nice way to connect. It'd be the same as popping by their desk. Zach, I see that during times checking in on their families, absolutely recognizing that there's a lot more going on than dealing with how our new workplace looks like, right? So there is a component of figuring out how to create a workplace when there is no workplace to be in, but also making sure that we're able to still make an impact and connect to people, recognizing that they might be dealing with a lot more than just making sure their work is done. People working from home if they have children, pets interrupting. A lot of you guys probably saw my LinkedIn post the other day. My dog was really being needy and was in my face the whole time while I was trying to work. Maybe it is that you're taking care of a family member who's sick, or a family member who's lost their job as a result of this pandemic. We have a lot more going on than just the work at hand. Connecting to people the way that you guys talked about are all fantastic ideas. I appreciate you guys sharing. I hope you guys continue to share throughout the webinar so that others can learn from you guys, because this is an opportunity for all of us to learn. And seeing these ideas are pretty exciting, and are already generating a few more in my mind. I like the March Madness one. I want to learn more. So your role, whether you're a leader or not, is not to tell everyone that everything's going to be just fine. It's to help them cope better with any fears that they may have. I want you to think about that for a minute. So many people are coming to us and asking for answers. But I'm calling on you not to have all the answers, but to rather cope with the situation that we're all dealing with. Your role is not to tell everyone that everything's going to be just fine. It's to help them cope better with the fears that they may have. Because of the diversity in our workplace at ClickStop, we still have quite a few staff who are on site, and they're fulfilling orders, they're manufacturing products, or maintaining the building and the basic functions. One of our leaders who's actually there on site with folks probably could be doing her work from home. but she continues to connect with her employees, of course, from a safe distance, by offering regular check-ins and Q&As each day. She's told them she's told them that she would not put them in a situation that she's not willing to be in herself. And she's offered up to them, don't assume that I know what you need, and don't assume that I can't provide it. So she's opening these doors for people to be sharing what it is that they're struggling with, what it is that they need from people, what they need from our organization. My leader, Monica Stefik, some of you may know her, and the majority of our talent team is working from home. My leader has set up regular video check-ins with our team every day at 1 o'clock. And we start off with a question of the day. Usually it brings us some laughs. And we bring other ClickStoppers in. Some of you who are on this call right now have joined us. And it's a good opportunity to just connect with people, feel human again, feel like we can be social and laugh with one another. And I look forward to those calls. They're short, but they are powerful. It's a good way to know what's happening within each other's workplaces or within our each other's work that we're dealing with, but also to just be together. And it's an awesome way to connect. And I'm fortunate that we have that technology to do that. I have a quote up there from Tammy Carr. She was the leader I was speaking of, where she said, I'm here for you. I don't assume that I know what you need, and do not assume I can't get you what you want. At the second part of your page on the bottom there, we have another activity that we're going to go through. I want you to take some time to fill in some of your teams and departments and identify the most effective ways to communicate to those teams. In addition to taking time and connecting and listening to employees, it's important that we're tailoring our message in a way that is effective for the people that we're working with. It's essential to get the right information to the right people in the right ways. It would not make sense for me to connect with our manufacturing team by blasting an email out to everybody. A lot of them don't have individual workspaces. A lot of them are focused in at their workspace that is for production. They don't have a laptop in front of them or a computer or access to email regularly. So if I want to connect with them, I have to think of a different way to do that. Maybe it's through our TV screens. Maybe it's for the whole team versus an individual. Think about who those teams are that you have in your organization and identify what are the most effective forms of communication for them. We're going to take just a few minutes to answer that on the bottom of the page there. Take that inventory of who your teams are and what are the most effective forms. Again, we'll just have a few minutes of silence here while we work on that. Take about one more minute to finish that up. And as we finish up that section, I want you to be thinking about, what are some of those effective forms of communication? Are those the typical forms of communication, or are those the things that, maybe you need to adjust? Our director of communication asked that question to me and said, what's the most effective way might not be what's most typical or what is typically most effective. And during this time, you have to use what you're hearing to shape the message and identify the right way to share information. And that circles back to that question at the top of the page. What is this information? How does this information shape your message? Sorry. How does this information shape your message? And how you deliver it might be changing as well. Take about 30 more seconds to wrap up that second part. All right, I hope everybody's doing all right, sticking with us, feeling good. We're going to move into the second thing that you could be doing to be influencing engagement during these uncertain times. The first was communication. The second here is recognition. Helping people feel like they matter. It sounds so silly. It can be fluffy to some, but helping people feel like they matter can be so powerful during uncertain times. I want you to take a moment and think to yourself about someone at work who gave you meaningful recognition. If you want to close your eyes, go ahead and do that. But I want you to just think back about a time that you received the most meaningful recognition. What made that so powerful? Did it make you feel like you were valued? Did it make you feel like you mattered to the organization or the team? It's easy for us to get swept up in all the intensity of this situation. And we try to turn everything into numbers and cents because it makes it easier for all of us to comprehend, right? When we need to make decisions or we need to figure out our course of action, it's easier to weigh numbers against one another versus people. And when we do this, we get so caught up in the trap that people are resources or stats or a number, and we forget that they're humans, that they're our coworkers, our friends, or our family. It's essential that we remind ourselves that people matter. And it's our responsibility as leaders, as employees, to show that. My mother is in the healthcare industry. She's been a nurse for over 35 years. And her hospital right now is running in the Chicago area, is running very low on supplies. I think they have about a week left of supplies, hoping for another delivery. They're running low on staff. People aren't able to come in because they can't find childcare, or they're sick, or their family's sick. And they're starting to draw on her unit to care for some of the spillover ICU COVID patients. The hospital is working to fulfill a need by balancing numbers and ratios of patients to nurses. But as a result, they're missing this sense of humanity in how they care for their employees. My mom has a lot of underlying health conditions, so she's nervous, she's stressed, she's working more hours than normal. And in a way, she feels like she's being utilized like a tool rather to fill this void rather than feeling like an employee who matters. She has a lot of needs that need to be taken care of and they're not being met. And as a result, she feels like she's just a resource. It's essential that we remind people that they matter. Recognition is one of the most underused strategies to increase employee engagement. If you recognize that we're all human, that we're dealing with more than just work, and check in with those people regularly, particularly those who are not used to the situation that they're in. If they're working remote and don't normally do so, or they're working on site and they feel uncomfortable doing that, stay connected inside this new normal and find time to recognize and show gratitude. There's a couple of reasons why we provide recognition. One is to create alignment. When we provide those affirmations or those forms of recognition, being rewarded for that behavior is indicative of the fact that I'm doing something right, that I'm heading in the right direction, and I'm meeting goals or exceeding goals, right? It helps to provide that sense of alignment that a lot of people need right now. This helps to ensure that we're meeting or exceeding expectations and that we're working in alignment with the goals, strategies, and initiatives that are in front of us. If you remember our definition of engagement, commitment and aligned action with our mission, values, strategy, and goals. It's hard to know if we're working in alignment with those mission, values, strategy, and goals if we're not receiving the touch points or the recognition that shows we are. The second thing is we provide recognition because it inspires others. When people see that recognition happening, when we share those stories of what's going well, it inspires others to meet that challenge, to rise to the top. And it inspires more positive behaviors, both for the individual who's receiving it, but also everyone else who sees that too. It creates intrinsic motivation to behave in a way that makes an impact. That means that this is not just in the moment that needs to be captured, but it also needs to be shared with people. Keys to meaningful recognition include making sure that it's significant to the employee, that we're making sure that it's specific to a behavior, a goal, or initiative, and that it demonstrates value, that it shows people that they matter. I want you to turn over to page 5 here, and we're going to do another activity together. I want you to identify an instance at the top of your page here. This should say storytelling worksheet. I want you to identify an instance or a story where you saw an individual performing in alignment with your mission, value, strategy, and goals. And what I need you to do is go ahead and write that person's name under story number 1. Column 1, story 1, it says who was involved. Write that person's name down. So I want you to think, who is that person that has been working in alignment with our mission, values, strategy, or goals? And write that person's name down in story number 1. We're only going to focus on one story right now for the sake of time, but consider answering the other 2 stories and using this template to create stories that you should be sharing with others. Once you write that person's name down, you identified what that story is, I want you to answer the questions that follow underneath that. So what happened? What tells you that this person was just crushing it, that they deserve recognition, that you need to show them a bit of gratitude? Why does it matter? What's the impact of that? What does it matter to the team, to the organization? Who does it affect? Answer what was inspiring about that. There's a reason it caught your eye. There's a reason that it made you pay attention to it. Talk about what was so inspiring about that. Write down who you're going to share that story with. We talked about communication being really important and figuring out ways that we can get the right information out to the right people in the right ways. Who are you going to share this story with, and how are you going to do it? Which communication channels will you utilize? Maybe these are your typical channels, the ones that you identified earlier, or maybe these are the most effective ones that need to be done right now, that need to be adjusted because of the situation that we're in. And then lastly, I want you to identify, when will you share it? Research tells us that if we don't write down or put a due date to something, most likely we're not going to do it. So what I need you to do is write down a date. When will you share this story? I know most of you are working on this right now. I'll give you another minute or so to continue answering those questions. I do apologize if you start hearing screaming or thumping. I hear my little munchkin crawling around up there and squawking. You might hear her as well. Take about 30 more seconds, finish up here. All right, so hopefully you have gone through and got story number one all listed out. It's that easy, folks. I need you, I need you to think about that. We only took about 3 minutes to figure out and identify what that story is and make a plan to share it. Some of us, this is something that we forget in our regular lives. We get so caught up in the busyness of all the work and what's on our plate that we forget to take time to recognize and show gratitude to those who are doing a great job. And now more than ever, people need to be reminded of that because it helps them to feel like they're working in alignment and it inspires them and others to do great work. Employees want to hear that they feel cared for and that nothing's being taken lightly. When it comes to the livelihoods of the people that work in your workplace, they want to feel like they are valued, that they're more than just numbers, and that will always be kept in view. I want to remind you of our message. It's your job not to tell people that everything is going to be okay. It's to let them know that they matter and that they're being considered and to help them focus on the work that will continue to support the business during this uncertain time. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that might come out of this. People may lose their jobs. People's work might change for the long term. Things are going to be different as a result of this pandemic. The job is to support the focus of employees by caring for the whole person, no matter what, showing them that they matter and that you care about them, and to do this in a way that is significant and meaningful. This helps by reaching out, or this happens by you reaching out and listening. And if you tailor your message from what you're hearing, then you encourage the focus on what will help the business grow. It helps people remember that they're cared for, that they are needed, and that they should keep caring for the business. It's important to remind people that they matter. It can mean a world of difference to people. And when things feel upside down and there feels like no end is in sight, they need you to show them that you're grateful for their patience, for their efforts, and their impact. Sharing those stories with them and others can be a really effective tool in making sure that those high performers, that high level of engagement continues to be there so that employees continue to be committed and aligned with what is most important and what will make an impact for the organization. These are odd and trying times for people. Most of us have never experienced anything like this in our lives. We're navigating a lot of uncharted waters, and that can be scary for most, myself included. The most important thing that you can do for your employees is be there for them, even if that means not physically being in the workplace. It's important that you, as an employee or as a leader, are communicating, that you're being proactive, being transparent and available, and asking questions, and that you show people that they matter. Doing that through recognition can be a great way to do that. Recognize that the work might not be their only focus, but if they can make an impact during that time, it's worth noting and recognizing and sharing. Take time to show that recognition and gratitude. Engaged employees will find a way. They will see this challenge as opportunities, and they will find a way to make an impact. They are the ones that are committed to doing so. And you can all play a role in affecting somebody's level of engagement. Every one of us has the responsibility to make this place, even this abstract workplace, be the best it can possibly be. And you can do that by affecting somebody else's level of engagement, by communicating and recognizing and showing them that they matter. I want to thank you guys very much for the time that we spent together today. I'm going to open it up in the last few minutes for any questions that you guys may have. You can put that in the chat or in the Q&A at the bottom of the page here. And I want to go ahead and answer those so everybody can have that. In the chat, if you want to either provide us a question or a takeaway, that would be great to share with the group. Again, reminder to have it be sent to all panelists and attendees. So either a question that you may have for the group, you can throw that in the Q&A or in the chat, or a takeaway that you had from this workshop that you might want to share with others. And we'll take the last 10 minutes that we have together to go ahead and share those. Thanks, Ali. Appreciate that. Any questions you may have or a takeaway you want to share with the group? Maybe it's an action that you're about to take. Would love to hear from you guys. Go ahead and share that in the question and answer, the Q&A box, or the chat box, and we'll go ahead and share that with the group. No takeaways, no questions. Guys, I told you in the beginning, I feed off of your guys' energy. Without it, it's hard for me to know if I did a good job or not. Want to make sure you get your questions answered. Holly, for me, it highlighted a couple of areas that I might have been making assumptions. Yeah, absolutely. Something that we don't want to do during these times of uncertainty is just assume that we know what people need, right? You mentioned it's an opportunity to create some clarity. Absolutely. Connecting with employees and asking what it is that they're dealing with, how they're doing, what their needs are will help you tailor how you can address that for them. Anybody else? Takeaways or questions you want to share with the group? Chris, when you asked about communication, it made me think about how others are communicating. Partners communicate through email, staff is using an instant messaging. I often use video chat, just noticing the difference in how I need more connection and others just want answers. Yes, absolutely. Anybody else? Kelly, I like yours. Ask more questions. Yes, you can't ask enough, right? For sure, Carla. It's easy to just buckle down and get your work done right at home. It's hard to keep in mind that, hey, people need interaction, right? And it's easy to let that slip away when you don't see people every day. It's a lot easier when you could just pop by somebody's desk or jump into their workspace and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or give them, the high five, which we can't even do that anymore, um, as you walk through the halls, or the thumbs up. And you don't get those opportunities as much. So being intentional about our time and how we communicate can be really important. Aaron, I see your takeaway around assumptions. Yes, particularly when communicating digitally, it can be easy to misinterpret emails or instant message, or even to misinterpret, lack of information. I don't know about you, but there's been times where I've sent a question to somebody and I get the dot 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 and then no response, and I could start thinking, oh, are they too busy for this? Are they confused by it? Did I ask the wrong question? Am I asking the wrong person? Absolutely. Those assumptions around digital communication, that could be a whole nother workshop. Jeremy, our director of communications, said so many factors that affect how an employee feels amid all of this. Some have families and little ones, others are single, some have been through threat of layoff before, and others haven't. It's important to connect with individuals and not just assume a group of people all feel the same. Absolutely. Jeremy and I had a conversation about this yesterday. Just even the difference within his family. Jeremy has 7 children at home, but he has a support of his wife, whose primary occupation is caring for those children, right? So his ability to work feels a little bit different than mine, for example, where my wife and I are trading off at times with our child on our lap, slapping our keyboard. And as Jeremy and I were having this discussion, he had one of his little ones scratching at the door, trying to get into his room. So yeah, there's so many factors: kids, parents, who you're taking care of, what your workplace looks like at home, or if you are on site. Absolutely, so many things play into that. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. Yes. It's interesting that you say that. Our principles that we shared were so basic and easy to apply. Truthfully, a lot of what we do with leverage are taking those concepts and ideas, and we make them applicable. We take that and we make it feel like this is usable and something that you can do. Most of what we share isn't new information. It's thinking about it through a different lens and applying it in a way that's most impactful to the organizations. Well, folks, as we wrap up the day here, I want to very much extend a moment of gratitude to each of you. I want to thank you guys for the time that you spent today. I know you guys are busy, a lot going on. For those of you in leadership roles, decisions being made. For those of you who are employees, a lot of adjustments as we are trying to get through and navigate these uncharted waters. I really appreciate you taking a moment to learn and develop with us. I hope you guys found this time impactful and that you guys can take away some of the tools that we provided, or ideas that we talked about. And I want you to know that Leverage Talent Enrichment is here for you guys. We do sell services. We do help to create a culture that's fostering engagement, but know that we're here just as a resource. If you have questions, you have things that you want to talk about, ideas that you want to bounce off of us, we're open to that. We don't need to have a formal partnership to make that happen. So please reach out to us. Would love to hear from you guys and continue to connect on this. That was one of our biggest messages, right? Continuing to connect. So we're here for you guys, and please let us know if there's anything that we can do to support you guys. Other than that, thank you again. I am going to follow up with you guys with a survey. Want to hear how we did today, get some feedback from you guys as well. Please take a moment to fill that out. It's very short, and it's good information for us to have because it does tailor our workshops to meet your guys' needs. And otherwise, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll see each other soon. Have a great day, everybody.